iCloud. So you now have been informed. Hey, welcome everybody. Today is August 25th. Theme Thursday is back again. I'm glad you were able to join us. I want to go through a few little housekeeping details. We have, please put yourself on mute unless you're going to be talking. And we're going to ask you for this presentation to write down your questions and hold them to the end, because Chris has a presentation and would like to be able to continue with his flow and be able to get all of his good thoughts that he wants to share with us out. So if we'll write them down, or if you want to put them into the chat, but we ask that you please stay on mute until he tells us that it's okay to unmute and that he's ready to receive some information. And I think that's about it, except that I would like to have Margie introduce our Vice President and Exhibition Chair and Theme Thursday host for the evening. Take it away, Margie.
Well, I think that a lot of us don't know the depth of Chris's talents.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a short video tonight so we can see all the other things he does. And I love Western landscapes, and his landscapes are just getting better and better and better, and they're just fantastic. So I was looking through the history of older Western painters, and I think right now the people that we have in, well, I'm going to throw you in there, Christine, with this too. You guys are right up there with the masters from before. I mean, I looked through and I was like, wow, these guys are great. So Chris, what do you want to start with?
Okay, well, I want to give you guys some idea of what I'm all about for the last 40 years professionally, and it's about an 8-minute video, and my presentation is going to take up the whole hour and a half, so I thought I'd use that as a filler, but I think you'll get a kick out of it, because I don't think a lot of you guys have seen this kind of portrait photography before too much. And anyway, so I'm going to show you this video, and then I'll come back in, and then I'll start my presentation. And like Margie said, it's a good idea to write questions down so you don't forget them. And we'll come back and I can answer any question you want. If I try to, a lot of times with Photoshop, if somebody asks a question, it becomes a big long demonstration and it kind of messes everything up. So we'll come back and answer all that later. So let me go ahead and share my screen and get the deal rolling here. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Oh, Kath, you want to hook me up? Hello, Kath.
I'm not the host. I'm the co-host right now.
Oh.
Let's see what's going on here.
It's my site. My thing says host disabled participant screen sharing. So just enable my screen sharing, I guess.
Let me put that on there. Is that going to work now? Try that.
Let me try it. Hang on a second. Okay. Yeah, we got it.
There you go.
Thank you.
We don't want to make this easy.
No. Oops. Okay.
It says oops.
Are you seeing my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you have to click on whatever you want to show us. Okay, the circle of life.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Chris, is there audio?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not hearing the audio.
We're not hearing any dialogue.
Uh-oh.
Only a little background music.
Yeah, there's background music. I don't know how to share that.
I think on that, yeah. Okay.
We
Wait
could
a second.
talk.
Hang on a second. Okay, now what did you say?
I just said, well, you could talk your way through it.
Oh, well, it's just music is all it is in the background.
Oh,
So
so there is none of you talking.
No. just
Oh, okay.
music.
Then
I
that's
don't know
what we hear. All right.
Yeah. I don't know why, how to get the soundtrack to go. Okay, I'll just start it up again. Okay. Okay, thanks for bearing with that. Sorry you didn't have the soundtrack. That makes a big difference. But anyway, okay. Now I will go into my little demo about how I did this Western landscape painting, and I will go back to screen sharing. Okay, this is my original reference photograph, and this photograph was taken in Idaho in 2017 when my brother and sister-in-law and I went up to Idaho to see the total eclipse of the sun in 2017. And her brother, my sister-in-law's brother, plotted out the exact perfect place to see this eclipse, and it was in the middle of nowhere in Idaho with a really cool campground right next to it. So we went up there and camped out a few days, and the day before the eclipse, we hiked up the mountain to find a good viewing spot. And on the way back down the trail, these guys came around the corner. And I was just in the right spot at the right time. And I didn't have my big gun camera with me, but I had my point and shoot. And I jumped out and pulled that out and started running up the hill photographing these guys. And this was one that I liked the best out of the bunch, I think, the way it turned out. So I decided I would paint this. And the first thing I did was I felt like I needed to put a cloud in the sky. And one of the things I don't always do this, but often I will do a digital painting before I do a pastel painting. It kind of helps me get a feel for colors and just kind of a look that I might be going for. And when I did this, I noticed in the upper left-hand corner that patch of bare mountain was kind of distractive. So I took that out. And then eventually I took that other one out too. But so then I decided that I needed something else. I wanted something else in this to tell more of a story. So I thought it would be great to put a dog in there, you know, because I know dog's man's best friend, and they were working dogs that they used in the good old West, right? So I happened to be at Lynn's ranch, Lynn Addig's ranch, and while I was taking pictures of the horses and the goings-ons, their dog was running around, and this is a picture I took, and it was the only one out of the bunch that would fit on that trail, the way he's running and stuff. So I took him out of this picture and put him in this one right here. You can see him right here. And so then before you start to do this technique I'm going to show you, you need to create a document in Photoshop, a blank document, the size of the painting that you want to end up painting. So I go into Photoshop and under a file, new file, you get this little window here, and you can title the file whatever you want. So I titled it Up and Away, and you can set the dimensions of your image, width and height. You can do pixels, inches, whatever. So I did inches. Of course, we all think in inches mostly. 300 DPI with a white background. And but you want to make the file, well, there's two different ways you can do this. You want to make the file either 1 inch taller, like 19 by 24, and you'll see why in a minute. But I use that blank area to put holes, to use registration pins to hold this paper that you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. But or you can just take this line drawing and put it on a larger document and go take it to the printers, but you'll see that too in a minute. So the way I did this was I made this document whoops, wait a minute, 19 by 24 instead of 18 by 24. So okay, so now I have this white document, or I have this document, and what I'm going to use it for, is to do like a tracing, to do a transfer. A lot of people do this by hand, by taking a light box or a window or something, and you lay a photograph or whatever you want to trace on it, and put tracing paper over it, and you hand trace around the shapes and whatnot. But you can do it in Photoshop, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, now I have this 18 by 24. It's actually 19 by 24 document, but my image is 18 by 24, and you can see that blank area up at the top. And oh, I got to move my thumbnail so I can see my Photoshop controls. Hang on a second. Okay. Okay, so what I do is I have this image on a layer, and I put a layer above it that's just a blank layer. And between the image layer and the blank layer, I put another layer that I just make white. And so the reason I make that layer white is so I can check my tracing, how the progress I'm making. So I'm gonna blow this thing up here. And on this layer right here is the layer I'm going to do my drawing on. And I used a pencil tool, which is under the brush. It's in the brush tool. If you click and hold it, the pencil, you'll see the pencil. I just click on that. And I set the pixel for black color and 1 pixel size. And I use you can do this with the mouse, but good luck. I use a Wacom tablet. It's like a pen painting tablet. It's much more like drawn for real. And I'm just gonna go in here and start tracing. Whoops, my shapes. I'm not going to do the whole thing because it'll take all night long, but I'm just going to give you an idea here. I'm doing it fast and dirty. If you mess up the sign, you can go back and erase it and just start over where you left off. Okay, I just kind of outlined that guy a little bit. And I'm going to turn on my white layer and you're going to see that outline. Okay, so you can see that outline I just drew. This is what I was drawing with. Now, this is what I ended up with. Let me go back down here. Let's see. Okay, that's the finished drawing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see a little more detail and whatnot.
Yeah, for a wonderful birthday, my dear.
Oh, good.
My 88th birthday.
So that's what I ended up with at my drawing. Now, once I got this drawing finished, I flattened the file, which means I just combine all those layers, and I save it as a JPEG. And I put it in a thumb drive and I take it to FedEx, Kinko's or whatever, and I have them print this on just white paper on their large format printer. And I usually have them print 2 or 3 copies because sometimes after you do your tracing, you end up needing to come back and do parts of it again, because maybe when you did your underpainting, you washed some of it away. If you didn't fix it, you can fix it, and that'll keep that from happening. But so you might need to, and I'll show you how about the registration pins in a minute. That's why those are important, so you can re-register this thing. So, but you also need to stroke this thing. And what that means is you need to put a black line around the whole thing. So when you go to the printers, you'll know the dimension of your actual piece. And the way you can do that is you just select the layer of your drawing and you go up here to edit and you go to stroke. And I'm using a 1 pixel stroke, and you just hit OK, and that puts a black line around your whole image. And I'm going to show you how that works in a second. I'm going to make a new document and lift this onto it. New. Okay. So if I flatten this, okay, it's all one layer now, and I'm going to stick that on top of this new document I made. And you can now see the black line that's going all the way around the image. So when you have it go to the printer, you'll know exactly the area of your image. And when you put this on top of the paper you're going to paint on, you can line it up. And this area up top here is where we're going to punch our holes and use our registration pins. And I'm going to get to that shortly. And then it'll make more sense. Okay, that's the finished file that I took to the printer. This is the piece of paper that I got from the printer. It's printed on this now. And the next thing I do is I take this home and I tape it to a window. Or if you have a light box big enough, you can tape it to a light box. But I just tape it to a window. And I tape, if I made 3 of these, I tape all 3 of them to the window, but I tape the first one first, and then I take each additional one and put it up there and register it. So it's aligned, all the lines are lined up straight. Everything is registered. Then once I get them all registered, then I tape all 3 of those sheets, or 2, however many you made. I tape them together, sides and top, and then you can take it off the window and you can take a hole punch, a 1/4-inch hole punch, and you punch holes in this upper area here, which is covered up by my control thing. Hang on a second. I'm going to move that. Okay. So if you're doing a small painting, you only need 2 holes. If you're doing a medium painting, you might want 3. If you're doing a huge painting, you might want 4 of these holes. And I'm going to show you what to do with the holes in a second. But what you're looking at too right here is after I tape this on the wall, I take a hard pastel, like new pastel, and I rub all over the back of the paper and coat it with pastel, just the area that I want to transfer lines on. And you might want to put something underneath this because the chalk's going to be dropping down on the floor if you don't. So, hang on a second. Okay, that's the back side of the paper that you were just looking at. That's where I put the pastel on. You can see what that looks like. Okay, so these are the pins that you can use to register those line drawings with. And they're made by a company called Turns Burton in St. Paul, Minnesota or somewhere. And I'm going to give you the email address for this place where you can order these things. And you can write it down, and if you don't get it, we'll get it to you later. But it's turnsburton.com. TERNSBURTON.com/register dash pins. And you want to order the 1/4 inch by 0.250 R. And you can get it however many you want. But that's, and this is what I will tape to my easel board or my backboard that I'm painting on to register those line drawings. So here you can see this line drawing on my backboard, and you can see the registration pins up here at the top. Those pins are taped to the backboard of my painting, or the easel, I don't remember which, but same difference. So after I punch those holes in the paper, all 3 of those papers, then you put those pins through the holes, and then you tape them on your board. That way it's all lined up, and you leave those pins on your board. You don't take them off, because once you put this line drawing on there and you trace it, like I said earlier, you might want to come back and trace some parts of it again. And if you just stick it back over those pins, it all lines up perfect. So that's it. And you can see I've started to draw on this paper with a ballpoint pen. That's what the blue part is. And as you draw on that, the pen presses the pastel to your surface that you're painting on and leaves an outline for you to paint on. And that's this is the whole thing finished now with my ink drawing. And this is the UART paper 400 with my transfer drawing on it. That's brown pastel. Okay, so like I mentioned, I had to, after I did a watercolor underpainting on this. You'll see that in a minute. And part of that watercolor painting kind of washed away some of my lines. I should have fixed them first. I learned that as I did this. So I had to go back and reestablish. So I put the a new piece of paper, the other one, a second one, over those pins and retrace some of the areas. So that's the significance of using those pins, or the reason to use them. I also had to go back and put the dog back in. So at a later date. So I took the back of the drawing paper and I taped pieces of paper to mask out all the other area except for where the dog is, because I didn't want that pastel to bleed or to smudge onto my painting surface. So I just kind of masked that out and then put this back on and drew the dog. And you can see my heavier outlines on the dog here. This is my watercolor underpainting. And I started in the sky. I usually work kind of top to bottom, or, you know, depending on what I'm doing, but I started with the sky, put the sky and cloud in. Then I started working on the hillsides, kind of roughing them in. And then I started working on the first horse guy in the front. And most of the detail in the horses and the riders and stuff, I was using pastel pencils for. I probably blocked in some larger areas, I think, with sticks, but most of the stuff I did with pencil. So there's the horse's head. I'm just slowly working in that horse. I started putting in more detail in the background there. Started on the second horse, the saddlebags and the rear end of that horse. And then I worked on the background some more. Then I started working on the third guy on the horse. And I just kind of slowly worked through all this detail. And I also had that reference photograph was on a monitor to my right, 22-inch monitor. So I was working from the monitor as well. I also had a photograph, but I think I used the monitor mostly. Okay, so then I'm filling in his legs and the rear of the horse and more of the horse. And then I put the dog in and started working on the back horses. And then I started filling in this foreground and the trail under the horses. And let's see, yeah. And then I filled in more detail in the foreground. And the background ended up being kind of too homogeneous. So I ended up going back up there and reworking that a little bit and ended up with it like that. So put another couple of hills in there. And that was the end of the road for that painting. So now we can do questions. Hang on a second. Okay. Anybody's got any questions? Shoot.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
this is Kath.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about color calibration and what you do for your monitors? Did you do anything in particular? Do you have special monitors for color calibration so that you get your desired?
I used to calibrate my monitors when I had the big tubes, the big giant deep, I forget what you call that kind of tube, cathode ray tube or whatever. So anyway, I used to have to calibrate those because they changed a lot over time. But when I got the monitor, the monitor that I use now, I found that I really don't have to calibrate it hardly ever. It doesn't change. So I kind of abandoned that. I haven't really been doing that. And another reason I don't do it is because at the time I was calibrating my monitor, I was also doing my own printing, and you have to calibrate your printer to your monitor so it all matches. Well, I don't do much printing anymore myself. I send it all out to a service. I got this close to buying a big wide format printer, and thank God I didn't, because it just ends up being more expense and hassle than it's worth, in my opinion anyway, unless you're just cranking stuff out by the ton, because if you don't use those things all the time, the heads dry up and you got all kinds of problems, So if I need a print made, I send it off and have it made, and that's my deal. So
Thank you, Chris.
yeah.
Chris, this is Ronnie.
Yes.
How long did it take you to complete the whole process?
That whole painting?
Yes.
Oh God. Well, it took several weeks, but I don't know if I calibrated that into hours, I'm thinking probably maybe 60 hours. I don't know, something like that. A lot of detail work in the saddles and the straps and all that. That was a lot of. That's the most detail I've ever done. I wasn't even sure I could do it when I first started doing it, but I did it. So, but anyway, took a while.
And it won an award, so hey.
Yeah. Yeah, can't argue with that, right?
Chris, I have two questions. The registration pins, you like those kind of remind me like of animation pegs, but
Yeah, they're from the graphic industry. Yeah.
oh, okay. As opposed to the old style, like little cross-haired ones that you would just stick on the page and then line it up.
Well, yeah, I think that was more for a lithographer, the printer end of the deal.
Oh, okay.
You know, I think in the graphic, I learned when I was in school, I learned that from an industrial photography shop or an industrial class I took. And that was one of the things I taught. And it's more of a specialized thing in the graphic arts industry. They like when you're doing lithos, high contrast films and stuff. And in the old days, we did this thing called posterization, which you can do on a computer now, piece of cake. But in the old days, you had to do it with litho film and multiple registered. It was a big mess. But
Yeah, because I knew when I was doing advertising stuff, we'd have, to get something
Yeah.
printed, we always had to put those down so you can realign it.
line everything up, right?
What pencils did you use? Carbothellos or?
No, I have Karan Dash and
Okay.
oh my God, what are those other ones? Hang on a second, I'll tell you. I forgot. Just-
Okay.
Wow, what a process, but the results, the payoff at the end of that was, terrific. And that underpainting, that watercolor underpainting.
They're Derwent.
Oh, okay.
I drew a blank for some reason. Yeah.
You're just saying about your watercolor underpainting. How much watercoloring have you been doing, Chris? Has
Well,
it just been, your underpainting style, or have you delved into
well,
it a little bit more?
it's funny when the art bug bit me, which was 5 or 6 years ago after I read a bunch of art magazines, I decided to try out watercolors, and I took a watercolor class and kind of basic watercolors and mixing color and stuff. And then Lynn ruined me for life by introducing me to pastels. So I immediately went into pastels, and the only watercolor stuff I've done since then, well, I did a few watercolors after that class, but the only thing I've done since then is a few underpaintings. I haven't done a whole lot of watercolor underpaintings. I've done a couple, but that one I decided to do watercolor for some reason.
I can imagine you had little itty bitty brushes.
I did. I have all kinds of sizes of brushes, but I was using little ones and with all those little straps and everything in there. Yeah, it was. Yeah, so while I was doing the underpainting, I was starting to say, well, heck, this is looking pretty good, just like this. Yeah. But anyway.
Good pathway to success if you know that underpainting is looking good. You're on the right track.
Yeah, you're on the right track.
Yes, I'm really flattered that you used my dog Bo in your
I know.
painting, and I wondered how hard is it to insert an image into an existing photo in terms of shadows? I mean, I've found that a little troublesome because the shadows are different in the photo you're maybe transferring from. Can you talk a little bit about how you manipulated that?
Well, in him, when I took him out of that photograph, there weren't any shadows, right? So I just cut him out of there and pasted him in the other one. I guess that's cut and paste is the easy way to say it. It's really more to it than that. But anyway, and I had to guesstimate and just paint in a shadow into him, kind of based on the other shadows and stuff. But you can in Photoshop, you can put a shadow, just like paint. You can put painting a shadow. You can put a shadow in Photoshop on a photograph, And if you don't have, it's all guesstimation or whatever, unless you have a shadow there to begin with. If you have a shadow maybe going to the right, but you want it going to the left, you can cut that shadow out and just reverse it in Photoshop and put it on the other side. So there's a lot of manipulation you can do with that. If one of the big things with Photoshop is it helps to have stuff to work with already there. You can do almost anything if you've got the elements in the image to work with. But if you have to create something to put in there, it's a little different story. You got to be a little more clever, I guess you will, or something, just like painting. Yeah.
Or your photography experience, I think really helps that.
Oh,
Because
yeah. Well,
you-
I knew when I decided to get into this art thing and pastels, I figured my photographic background would help me a lot in many ways. And I figured once I got into the art thing, that would help me in my photography stuff too. It kind of goes back and forth. And sure enough, I think I have gotten into the grass concepts and gotten into pastel painting as quickly as I have, because I already had a lot of that value and contrast and composition. I already had all that in my head. I just needed to learn how to do it in pastel, you know.
Chris, could you talk a little bit about the transfer paper that you use to do the, to
The
put the
pages,
ballpoint? Now, when
Yeah.
you got the brown, how do you, does it come with pastel on it and you
No.
flip it over?
no, once you get that file, that drawing finished on your file, you copy that file to a thumb drive and you take it to a printer like FedEx, Kinko, whatever they call it. And you give them that file, or you can stick it in the machine yourself, and you print out that file, which is nothing but lines, lines on the white paper that's in the printer. It doesn't have to be fancy paper, just the cheapest stuff they got, whatever's in that printer. And you print it to size. So when the print comes out, you got the piece of paper with those lines around the edge and your line drawing image, and you take that home and you tape it up on I taped it up on my sliding glass door because it's just a big piece of glass with light coming through. You can do it on a light box if you want. And you tape it on there, and then you put if you printed two, or you take the second one and you put it on top of the first one and you move it around until the lines all line up. And then you tape the edges so they don't move. And then you can take it off the window and you take a hole punch and punch holes in that top area. Doesn't matter where you put the holes as long as it's not in the painting. They don't have to be any specific lined up place. What lines it up is after you have the holes, you just take that one sheet of that paper and you lay it over the surface of the paper you're going to paint on your easel. But before you do that, you put those pins through the holes, and then you place them on on the easel, and you tape those pins down while they're still on the paper. So the paper is now on the pins on your painting surface, and then you can take your ball. Oh, I'm sorry, you got to go back. You got to go back and tape it to the window. You don't have to put it on a window. You can just lay it on a flat surface. But you take a hard pastel. I think I used the new pastel, that brown one. I forget what it's called, or the number of it. But and it doesn't matter what color. It can be any color really, just as long as it's kind of a dark color. You don't want to use too light because it'll fade into the paper. But you take your pastel and you rub it all over the back side of the paper, the side that's going to be laying against your painted surface. And you rub it all over the area where the line drawing is. And once you've rubbed it on there with the pastel, I take my fingers, or you can take a smudge tool or something, and you want to just burnish all, rub it in so it's all nice and smooth and homogeneous. And then you take that paper and you put it on the pins on your painting surface and a ballpoint pen, and you start drawing on all those lines, and the pressure of the pen pushes the pastel onto your surface, and it leaves that drawing on the surface you're going to paint on. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to take fixative then and spray those lines a little bit so they don't wash away when you do your alcohol or water color underpainting. Does that make sense? Or you?
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it seems a little confusing when you're trying to visualize it in your head, but once you do it or start doing it, really is not that it's really easy to do. You just got to know how to do it like anything else. I guess.
Well, you're making your own transfer paper.
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, exactly.
Like, when the old days when we had to type and you had to
Yeah.
put like 3 pages in, and
It just eliminates one of those, that's tracing step. You're doing it in the computer. Oh, I'm sorry, the steps, if you trace it on paper, some people will take that and scan it and then enlarge it and then go have it printed. With this process, you don't have to do that step. You just go straight from your computer to the printer. You don't have to scan it. It's already the size you need. I
So
forgot-
Rob, did you get your question answered? Robin had a question in the chat.
okay.
Did you get that answered, Robin?
Well, Chris?
Yeah.
It's Robin, and you said you took all three copies and put them together on your
Yeah.
pins?
Yeah, no, yeah. and
No, just two of them?
Well, okay, depending on how many you think you might need, I for sure would do at least two because you might screw one of them up.
Right.
But I do two or three. If I think I'm gonna, the reason you do more than one is, and the reason you tape them on the window and line them up in line, and then you punch holes in them, that way they all register in the same spot on your easel, right? So you
Sure.
just take one of them and you put the pastel on the back, and then you lay it on your pins, on your painting, on the easel, and you draw your thing. And then you take it off your pins. But say you got to go back on the pins to draw something on there again. Because you have those pins and you have the holes in each one of those pieces of paper, they all line up at exactly the same place.
Yeah. I guess the third one is just kind of an extra, just
Yeah,
in
it's an
case.
extra, or, you know, like I say, maybe in the process of doing them, your dog
Yeah.
ate one of them or something, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
What are you using, if you were going to spray it, what are you using for your spray?
Well, you could probably use just about any fixative, but I think it's that Stillians stuff or whatever. Hey, I'm checking on it.
I wonder if it's Lacao fixative.
Maybe Sennelier? Lascaux?
I think he said La Carte.
Le Carte Sennelier, yeah. So
Yeah,
he said he put it at the end.
I can't find that. It's
that's okay.
but I think that's whoever. I think it's Selenier or whatever you call it. Right?
Yeah.
You fixed the whole thing at the end, Chris, when you were finished?
The painting?
Yeah.
No, heck no.
I didn't think so. So
No. Yeah, no, I don't spray my.
that was just to fix the drawing, just
Yeah,
the
just
drawing.
just
Yeah,
drawing, because like I say, when you start doing an underpainting, if you're using liquids like alcohol or water, it can wash that under drawing away too much, you know.
Chris, I had a question regarding the pins that you were talking about. You said they were turnsburton.com. You were very specific about the size. I think you said it was 1/4 by 2.50. And did you say ARC, A-R-C?
Yeah, when you go to their website, they have a different sizes listed there. I think on the upper left area is this size right here. It's a 1/4 inch. The diameter of that pin's a 1/4 inch by 0.250. I'm not sure what that means, and then there's an R at the end of it.
Oh, R, just an R. Is it the,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's the
Which I'm
radius. I don't
guessing
know.
stands for round, probably, because they have
Okay.
different shaped pins.
I'm glad I clarified. Would you mind putting that in the chat? So I would put it in, but I don't know if I want to spell it incorrectly for everybody.
Okay, well, hang on. Yeah, I can do that. Hang on a second.
Then everybody, if you want to take advantage of that, just copy it down or take a picture of it.
I'm gonna put the website in there too.
Perfect.
/registers.
How many of you use Photoshop? Anybody in the audience today? There we go. I said Maureen does. Okay.
Good. Well, when I get a Photoshop class together, y'all can take it and learn how to do it.
Yeah, I don't
Great.
use it. I don't use it for my art. I just use it for my photos. And, I had a design firm and you get real good in Photoshop. But I like the idea of doing a composite in Photoshop. back in the day, tracing was not acceptable. I'm just saying, you know, the real artists, you'd get in trouble for doing that. So I just think that's interesting as an idea of way of transferring the picture so you have more accuracy.
Yeah,
It's interesting. I never considered doing that. I mean, when I was 16, I did it, but
yeah,
that was a long time ago.
yeah. This is just a more high-tech way of doing a tracing with tracing paper. You know, that's the only difference.
Mhm.
And
Fun.
yeah,
I was just gonna say, Ottawa said that, you know, people know how to draw, but when you're an illustrator and you have all these deadlines, then, wait, I'm getting.
well, my personal take on what's acceptable or not is, and you may certainly disagree with me, but I don't care how you get to the finished painting. The finished painting is the only thing that matters. That's where I'm coming from. But to back that up further, artists through the centuries have embraced new ways of doing things. I think it was Vermeer that, you know, the detail freak that used a big giant camera obscura to project images on the wall and he traced that where he painted, you know. So every time, and then the camera came out in the 1800s, you know, that was a new technology. So there's always going to be something new. And if it works and I can use it, I'm going to do it.
You know, even Michelangelo doing the frescoes and whatnot, they had the huge papers with the charcoal
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever they were using. So, you know, tracing has been going on for centuries, absolute centuries.
yeah.
Hi, everybody. For some reason, Linda said that her screen froze and she couldn't get back in. Is anybody capable of inviting her back in?
Did that thing that I put on the chat, did that go in there? I hit enter and it didn't do anything.
I think if she uses the passcode, she can get back in off the email.
Yeah, I told her to try that and she said it didn't work, but I'll ask her to try again. I thought there was a way I could invite her. Okay, I'll work on it.
Did the information I put in about these register pins go on the chat?
No.
Because I typed it out and hit enter and it didn't go anywhere.
Did it go to everyone or?
Yeah, we
Well,
want to make sure it went to everyone.
I'm clicked on everyone, but and when I hit enter, it's not doing anything.
Hmm.
Maybe it's my stupid computer. I don't know.
Chris, send it to me and I'll put it in the chat.
Send it to you. Okay.
Yeah, in a text.
Oh, a text. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Sure. Hang on a second.
I sent another invitation to Linda, just so you know, Margie. I emailed it to her, so hopefully she can check her email. Let her know to check her email.
Okay, will do.
Well, Lupe's got it. Thank you, Lupe. So Lupe put the information in the chat. So this really, you know, Chris has a fine example of just, you know, plan for the unexpected and just be ready. And he's got an artist eye as a photographer to just know where to look. If you know where to look or what to look for, you'll find it.
Exactly. That's a great point. Plus, you got to be ready. You know, I carry a camera with me everywhere I go all the time. Well, now everybody uses their phones, but I have a phone and a point and shoot, and you know, you never know when something's going to happen. Okay, I'm getting ready to send this to you here. Okay. Order 5.250 space. Oh. Okay, I sent you the text.
Thank you. Yeah, this has a little bit more information in it, so I'm going to put this into the chat for Chris.
Okay. Awesome.
Keep talking, everybody.
Well, and that's part of what you were talking about, Kath, is just putting yourself out there. You know, if you stay home and sit on your couch all day long, you're never going to see anything or do anything, but you get out there and go places and do things and read and get involved, things start happening and you see all kinds of cool things and it's just awesome.
Chris,
Yeah.
yeah, I have a couple of questions on the portraiture that you showed at the very start. Did the people pick the settings? Did you help them pick the settings, or did you pick the settings and the lighting and all?
You talking about the portrait stuff?
Your portraits,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. I usually, when I am asked to do a portrait session or something, I usually, before I do anything, is I talk to them about what they want to do, you know, who we're going to photograph, where they want to do it, what kind of backgrounds do they want, you know, they want to do it in their home, the garden, park, beach, you know, themes, how they're going to dress. Just I try to answer as many questions as possible, which does a couple of things. One, it helps to make the finished portrait better, but it also eliminates all possible problems. You know, somebody shows up in a purple and white polka dot shirt, that's not going to work. You know, that's all you're going to see in the portrait. So also some locations dictate what time of day you want to do it, you know, lighting wise and whatnot. Beach stuff you got to do right at the end of the day, that kind of thing. So I eliminate problems and find out what they want, and then I can zero in on it. I hope that answered your question.
What kind of lighting did you use?
I use either totally natural light, but I'm looking for directional light. I'm always trying to stay out of direct sunlight. So I'm getting in under trees or next to buildings which subtract light. I'm looking for natural directional light. Or if I can't find it, or if I want to do something for whatever reason, I will set up an umbrella with a strobe light to create directional light. And I'll use that as a main key light and use natural light as a fill light. You know, sometimes I backlight stuff. I just do whatever it takes to make it as nice as I can make it within my vision of what I want to do. You know? That's part of the fun of what I do. And that's kind of one of the things I in school, I was initially an illustration major, and then I got into portraiture and double majored. But one of the things I learned in illustration is you just got to do whatever it takes to get the image you want. You got to improvise. You just got to do whatever it takes. And you learn to just kind of work on the fly and solve problems and just make it happen. And so and because I don't do any studio portraiture, I've always done everything on location. So I'm always dealing with different elements, and that's part of the fun of what I do. That's challenging. It's cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you into photography? Do you like photography as more than just taking landscape, or, you know, for your art? Are you into that in a more serious way?
Yeah, I used to have in fact, I still have the 4x5, but I used to have a dark room in the house.
Sure.
And used to do the black and white.
Awesome.
We'd do some wild things. We'd go underneath the freeway bridges in downtown LA because the lighting was almost like cathedral lighting down there. And I wouldn't go down there now, but this was, say, in the 85 or so. Yeah, and I like to see if I can find something that's not going to be a typical landscape or something. I'm looking for light. I'm looking for something that might be more interesting than, you know, a picture of a mountain over here. Or, I mean, I want something a little bit more definitive in it.
Absolutely.
So that's it. But I appreciate your ideas on the portraiture. It's
that's the whole key to photography and most art is it's all about light. You know, light, shadow, shape, form, and then with photography, you're using angles and lenses to get dramatic perspectives and lines in the image and that kind of thing too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, it's Kath again. So what are you working on now? Do you have another little
I took a Joe Mancuso workshop a couple weeks ago on painting mountains. And the painting I was painting in there, of course, I didn't finish. So I have been working on that. Lynn and I I was working on that with her a little while ago. Still isn't finished. So I got to get back into that and finish that and then get on to the next. Oh boy, I got something in the pipe that I'm really excited about. It was when I went to IAPS, not this time, but last time. I went to Santa Fe and Taos after IAPS. I took, 850 gajillion photographs. And at the Taos Pueblo, I took pictures of the Pueblo itself, the big building there. And that building is the oldest constantly occupied building in the country. It's been there over 1,000 years. Anyway, I took pictures around there and I got all inspired to do a painting of that building and a few other things in that image that I'm not quite ready to reveal yet, but you'll see it eventually. Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to that.
Right. And that's the other thing. I probably have enough photographs to keep me and 10 other people busy painting for the rest of my life, and it's hard to, I start looking at my old pictures and I go, oh, I got to paint that. But then I go out and take new pictures, and I go, oh my God, it's just never ending, So, I don't know.
And how has your collection of pastels been growing?
It has, until about, it was growing pretty fast until about, I don't know, a year ago or something. And it's funny, even though I closed my business down of 40 years in April, but I'm busier. I think I'm busier now than I ever was. And I don't know why.
That happens.
I know. And so I have actually been painting less in the last few months than I used to. But I got to get back into it. I've been, I was busy for one thing with our Make Your Mark show. So there you go.
I can relate to that. Absolutely. Yes. So,
Well, that set of Blue Earth pastels that you have, the entire set, is very envy worthy.
Yeah. I bought that because when I was a beginner, the thing that excited me about those is they sort them out by hue and value. So they're already sorted, and it's real easy to, if you pick one hue and it's a little dark or light, you can just go right to the next one, which is a little darker or lighter. And of course, my other pastel box, which is full of a mixed mass of everything and is kind of out of control right now, eventually I've learned with experience, you can start to see the values and the hues, without having to have them all laid out for you. But at the time I saw those, I thought, ooh, that's what I need. Make life easy.
I have another question. How did you learn or develop this transfer technique? And have you ever tried it with your portrait photos?
That's a great question. And both my answers are, I'm glad you asked that question because I want to give credit. Otto Stirk, our ex-president, taught me, former president, former whatever. He taught a class that I took that the main reason for that class was to teach his transfer technique. And so that's where I learned that concept of doing a line draw, like tracing a line drawing. He just had pieces of paper that he had printed up. He had a still life of a pumpkin and some other stuff. And I learned the technique from him, but then I took it one step further by my own, since I knew Photoshop, and I just figured out I could probably do that in Photoshop. So I took it a step further and did it in Photoshop, but it's basically the same thing. It's just a different way of doing it. And the other thing about the portrait stuff, or the portrait thing you just asked me, is people ask me all the time, have I done any portraits? And since I got into pastels, I have had no desire to do a portrait at all because I did portraits for my whole life for photographs, right? but I think it's also because I've been so focused on just learning the technique of pastel I really love landscapes and other stuff. So, but I do intend to try that technique with a portrait, and I am going to try to do some portraits. I think it would be awesome if I can learn how to take the portraits that I've already created photographically and turn them into paintings. If I can, I'm kind of intimidated about flesh tones and colors. I got to learn how to do that, I think, but I think I can do that. I just got to do it.
Just another technique, something more
Yeah.
to learn. Wait, there's
Yeah.
more. Just don't even blink.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love the fact that you had life, you had figures, you had a story involving humanity and the animals,
Oh,
and a destination, a journey that was going on. And that's why I think that particular painting was just so, we were just stunned by it. When you had the great reveal at the show, it was wonderful.
oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it certainly probably took me the longest painting I've done so far, but
And you learned a lot.
I
didn't
did.
you? You learned a lot. I mean, you can't pay for that type of hands-on experience.
Yeah, every time I sit down, I'm learning something. That's why I need to sit down more. Oh my God. We all do. We can't learn enough. We'll always be learning. You never quit learning, You really don't. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you have you been trying or attempting to maybe doing some plein air, Chris?
Yeah.
Getting out and on location and doing
I want to. I've done a few plein air paintings, but not too many, but I want to do more.
Mhm.
And again, it's just I got to find the time to do it. I think was gonna do. I think we either PAG or PSC. We were gonna do a plein air paint out, but I either got sick or something happened and I couldn't make the last one. I can't remember what. It might have been COVID.
That was the COVID. That was
Lynn and I.
everybody that went to IAP, not everybody, but like a lot of people got COVID at IAPS, even though everybody was vaccinated. So we had to cancel a couple things, but
yeah, we had a plein air thing scheduled at the end of that, and we all got sick. That's what happened. That's right.
yeah, I was gonna say, Chris and I have started painting together once a week, and if you can find a painting partner, it really keeps you on task. And sometimes we paint at my house, in my studio, sometimes we paint at his studio, sometimes we go out plein air. We went to the park one day, and I don't know, I think I fell asleep in the grass because it was such a nice day. But I mean, sometimes that's what you need to do. You just need to be outside and absorbing it all. But if you can get somebody near you to be your painting partner, or even 3 people or 4 people, I think the fewer, maybe you'll get more done if you have fewer people. But I think it's a good thing to keep you kind of on a regular painting.
It's just like having a
rhythm.
running group.
And I wasn't going to start something yesterday because I have got a lot of travel coming up. But it was painting day and I started something new. So I just did it. I wouldn't have done it if Chris hadn't been there to say, let's do it.
Yeah.
So like that's just a little suggestion that I have found over the years. If you don't have a class, get somebody to paint with to keep.
Yeah. It's like a running group or exercise group. It forces you to be there. I mean, it motivates you to be there.
Yeah, some accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus you can, obviously you help each other out. You crit each other's work and, you give suggestions, and it's always great to have a more objective viewpoint than your own hung up on. Yeah.
Chris, you mentioned IAPS. Did anybody's demo that you witnessed inspire you more than somebody else, or what you took away from it?
Well, I took Lynn Celta's one-day workshop.
Oh, she's a dandy.
Yeah, and that was really good. I learned a couple of really good things from her. One of the biggest things I learned from her was that before you even sit down to paint, think about what it is you're trying to say. You know, think
Mhm.
about, really think about it. Don't just sit down and start painting. Really think about what the emotions and what you're, she told us to take whatever reference photograph or we were going to pay from and look at it and write a paragraph about what that painting makes you feel. You know, what do you see in that painting? What are you looking at? And then just take 3 or 4 words or one little line out of that paragraph. That's the essence of what you just wrote, and write that on the top and put it on the top of your easel, and paint with that thought in mind. And what I painted this peaceful river scene in Oregon, and to me it was just, it was peace and tranquility. I think that's what the words ended up being on my easel. So I learned that from the other thing I learned from her is you don't have to paint the local color. You know, I was painting these greens and stuff, and she comes over and she goes, you know, look at that beautiful purple shadow over there. You don't have to paint that green. You could paint that with purples or complementary colors, or analogous colors. And so I completely changed my whole color scheme, and it ended up cool. It looked pretty neat, you know, just color harmony, you know. And that's a neat thing I learned from her. I volunteered to shoot the video camera for a couple of demos. One of them was Albert Handel's, and that was an interesting experience. He's a great painter, and I love it the way he teaches. You know, he just makes a mark. Part of it, I mean, he can do that because he's been doing it for years, but he just makes a mark and goes, yeah, that looks about right. You know, you know, he just, I don't know, he's something else. He's a character.
Just, you know, would like to let you know that there's an opportunity. Albert Handel is going to be coming out to Southern California, and Visual Experience Fine Art Gallery will be sponsoring his 4-day workshop. It's going to be in a combination of oil and pastel. You can work in whatever medium you'd like. So with that in mind, we don't get him out this way very often. So if there's an opportunity the first week of May to be able to work with the master. I just saw him on Pastel Live, the second annual Pastel Live, and just was mesmerized by his workshop, his hour-and-a-half demo that he did. And of course, he's working on the trees, the landscapes, and he has a very unique style. And I didn't get a chance to see him at IOPS take his workshops because I was busy in all these other workshops. Because I think he didn't teach a workshop; he just did a demonstration on the stage. So
yeah,
it was nice to be able to connect with him during this past June.
How do you spell his name?
It's Albert is his first name, Albert, and Handel, Handell.
Okay.
And he lives out
Is
in
there
New Mexico.
Is there any like classes that are offered? You know, sometimes you just need to have a lot more exposure in a classroom or in a setting like that. Are there any just, you know, where you can take a college class or something just to refresh? Because sometimes just having to go all the time can be beneficial. And also you learn from others. I just think pastel's so specific. There probably is not, but I'm just wondering if something there's less expensive, because some of it's just doing it. Like, you know, you're saying,
where are you?
Chris.
Are you here in the South Bay?
I'm in Long Beach.
Yeah, there's a place in Torrance called Destination Art, and
Uh-huh.
they offer,
Yeah.
they offer all kinds of workshops there and different media and stuff. And Pastel Society of Southern California, we host all kinds of instructors and workshops and demos.
Yeah. But I'm looking for something just cheaper, because, you know, if you start spending $300 every month, you're going, I better be making some nice artwork to compensate. I'm in an early stage. So
about cheaper. Yeah, it gets expensive.
that's why I'm saying the more we draw, the better.
Yeah. PV Art Center might offer some more reasonable, or maybe adult school. Sometimes they offer courses. I don't know.
Maureen,
That's
there's
I'm not familiar out in the Long Beach area, Maureen, but if you send me a text or with your interest, or write it to the Pastel Society of Southern California with your interest on that, we'll be on the lookout for that and see if we can't get some resources out to you. you know, and help
I
you
mean, it
out.
doesn't have to be in Long Beach. I could travel to Torrance. It doesn't, it's not that far.
Right.
just
Destination Art
that.
has a tremendous lineup of different types of workshops and classes to do on an ongoing basis. So that might be something to investigate if you want to get into figurative drawing, or there's Joy was mentioning that in at the loft in San Pedro, if you want to do figure drawing, there's the opportunity on every Tuesday to be able to do figure drawing. So whether you want to paint a figure, or if you want to draw it in graphite, and there's nothing like drawing from live models, you know, to be able to get better faster, besides plein air work.
And there's also, if you're interested, there's a number of these wonderful artists, Gail Sibley, Marla Baguetta, who have Zoom, I mean, they not Zooms.
Patreon, they have their workshops.
Yeah, I think that's what he wants to say.
Yeah, but I think what Maureen is saying is that when you're out with other artists and you're going to a workshop and you're seeing a group of people, that it really is very, very helpful. Destination Art also has their painting on Tuesday for a small fee. There's a regular group that goes and meets there on Tuesdays, and they paint from, I don't know if it's 10 to 2. So there are some resources out there for you, Maureen.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And Christine Whitney says, try YouTube, it's free. There's a lot of stuff I watch on YouTube, usually in the oil painting world.
Okay, that's a great idea. You know, I'm an older person, so I don't do.
Well,
YouTube.
you know, we all are kind of there. But I do like the camaraderie, but you know, every time now and then there's a 20, 30 or 40 minutes and I don't have to leave home, and I can actually go, you know, there's about 7 people that I actually tune into regularly just to see what they're doing, and maybe I can pick up another tip or two, and I always pick something up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hello, Bernard. How are you?
Good morning.
Hey.
Sorry, I'm a bit late
Good
here.
morning.
Well, it always good morning sounds always fresher, doesn't it? Than
absolutely.
Good evening.
It feels like in the morning. Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Bernard.
Did I miss the big event?
No, you didn't miss anything.
Oh.
You can watch the replay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we were talking about, you know, getting out and doing plein air and live drawing, and you know, that's kind of where we are right now. Chris, you had a wonderful demonstration. I'm sure everybody picked up a lot of things that might be in their future should they, you know, delve into the Photoshop world. I guess not enough of us do it. Anybody else have something to say? Miss Overs, you've been a little bit quiet over there in your studio.
I was going to mention to Maureen that I have a number of people that I go to on YouTube. And if you just put down search pastel lessons or pastel for beginners, I know Linda had some good suggestions. You can also see our past PSSC demonstrations, and quite a number of those. You know, we did a tips and techniques. It was an interesting one, but I highly recommend the YouTube. Like there was one who just did a thing on how to paint clouds, and it was her tips and techniques, and actually I thought they were really wonderful.
Dara Margulis is a great teacher too.
Oh yeah, she really is.
So Christine there's a question in the chat before we leave, and her question is, there is direct painting and indirect painting. Is there a type of painting somewhere in between, and what would it be called? And I'm not sure what those terms are. Can somebody enlighten me, and we can help Christine out with her question? I don't know what direct painting and indirect painting is. I've never heard that before.
Well, there is a term called alla prima, which means first strike, and it means that you set up your paints and you don't build up layers and you don't noodle around with it. You just say, these are the colors, I've mixed them, and you slap them on, and that's it. Whereas the other way around it is, you know, you might be building up the drawing, building up the large areas, moving to various tones and values, and then you work in a certain way where you might be putting glazes in and noodling around with the damn picture. And,
Oh, wait a minute, I'm a glazer.
did I use the wrong word somewhere?
Noodling, okay.
Noodling. Well, what I mean is that you're looking for everything and everything, but and you might take weeks over it. But whereas alla prima says you're looking at the scene or whatever it is. It could be a representation of the scene that you did some sketches of, and you say, I need to get this thing done. I'm going out to lunch in an hour. Bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah, so
That
Chris-
might be the answer about direct and indirect.
Well, she said that direct is classical and alla prima is indirect. Okay. To new stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm now confused. So.
Okay. Well, everybody, we're going on 8 o'clock. We can stay on a little bit longer, but I'm going to stop the recording now. I want to thank everybody for popping in this evening. Chris, thank you again for an incredible demonstration of your technique, a little bit of an indoctrination into Photoshop. The method that you used, the methodology was really great, and your painting results were terrific. And Margie, thank you very much for bringing Chris on board for this wonderful theme Thursday. So we can stay on, and anything else you want to say, Margie, before I stop the recording? We've got
Someone asked me for what my favorite YouTube people were, and I'd be happy to send them the information. If you could just send me an email to paintergal@gmail.com. I could put that in the chat.
That'll be great. I'll give it a moment. Well, I can stop the recording and then we'll go ahead and stay on for your information. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.